I moved here in 1981. In fact, it was June the 5th, 1981 when I came over the mountain. And that was exactly the same day that HIV was described in the Center for Disease Control newsletter. And I got hooked on it right then and there because I thought it was such an interesting disease. Very early on, it was obvious to me, long before there were many cases, that most people were not interested in learning about this disease, including the health department early on. And so we got a lot of support from the Sisters of the Holy Cross.
In 1982, I met Dr. Kristen Riles, and her practice became overwhelming for one physician, and she asked me to go to physician assistant school and to come work for her.
No one worked as hard as they did. They would be in the clinic until 6, 7 in the evening, and then they'd go up to their office and write their notes. And some days they'd be there until 9 or 10 and come back the next morning at 7, 7:30. So.
In 1994, the for-profit corporation asked Dr. Riles to leave Holy Cross Hospital and to take the patients with HIV elsewhere. And so we scrambled, looking for places in Salt Lake City that would accept our patients.
We were approached from the university, and we thought this would be a really good place to start a clinic, and they really wanted us to come at that time because they needed an infectious disease HIV program, which they didn't have. So we decided to move everything, including about 500 patients, to the university.
HIV was a very stigmatized illness, and there wasn't a lot of help from governmental agencies. People didn't want to be associated with helping people with HIV.
I think that's the worst thing I heard, was to hear that my patients didn't deserve good care, or that they deserved to die.
What I remember the most about Dr. Riles is just her compassion. When she had no treatment for these people, none, she went back to the roots of what it is to be a physician, which is care. And sometimes what we do is we sit with people, we honor them, we respect them, and we care for them. And we help them make that transition to death, and we prepare them and their family for it.
Every drug that came in the pipeline had a little effect, but it wasn't until 1995, 96 that there was a combination of 3 different drugs that really made an impact.
The death rate plummeted, and people rose. I mean, we had phoenixes. We had these people on death's door, and they suddenly were surviving and living. And so it was a remarkable transition to go from preparing people to die to preparing people to live with a chronic illness.
About 3 years ago, Maggie and I were trying to figure out what to do with all the things we have in our house. We have 30-some scrapbooks with all the obituaries and everything about the patients since the early 80s. We thought it should be preserved somehow because nobody remembers when the doctors wouldn't take care of patients here. So Terry Cogan came up with this idea of a collection at the Marriott Library at the university. And so now there's a Snyder collection for HIV that we encourage anybody that has any material to donate to, so that the history of HIV in Utah will always be preserved. Jared Ruga, who was also in film, said, well, is anybody going to make a movie? And then it all went from there. And it took him about 2.5, 3 years to make this movie about HIV in Utah. And it really looks at several of the patients that have lived through this, or families. They named it Quiet Heroes. And it was accepted for Sundance this year.
I hope that we helped people in the state of Utah understand people's needs and how to prevent HIV, how to treat HIV, and that people with HIV weren't something that you needed to be afraid of.
Everybody needs care, and I really do believe that everybody should have good medical care or just any care.